Is climate change bothering you? It doesn't bother me at all, because I know there's nothing I can do about it. If it's bothering other people, I can't do anything much about them being bothered about it either. What ought to bother people, though, isn't climate change itself, is the abysmal lies told about climate change. Not that whether it's climate changing or not, it's the data, the analysation of the population of the Earth, and who's supposed to be responsible and who's supposed to get on and develop the world and the economy as normal. That then becomes a very interesting statistic, a bit of information, in that the Western democracies are about, and we can get an accurate figure, but are about 7-8% of the global population of about 8 million, or whatever it is. So, and these democracies are the ones that are copying the brunt of the blame for climate change. Not only are they copying the brunt of the blame for it, they're expected to stop climate change. Only the Western democracies are involved in actually action on climate change, regardless of how the rest of the world paints itself and presents itself, like Saudi Arabia, all the Arab Emirates. They all rely on oil for the income. Is it perfectly okay? I mean, I'm all for them relying on oil for the income, because we all need oil. We can't get around in our cars without oil. It's as essential as water these days. And yet, we have people in the West, and the politicians included, denying very simple statistic. The 7% of us in the world can't possibly influence the future of climates if the 93% aren't involved. And they're involved, all right. They're involved in just carrying on normally and putting pressure on the UN through the majority vote of it is, abusing democracy, and they're involved in somehow in cajoling or getting Western politicians to go along with this lark. And it is a lark. They're having a joke. But all the dumb white people in the West, and all the rest of them have come over the West hoping for a better life, to see that life now begin to be eroded because of the outside forces undermining democracy, using the politically correct version of how to deal with climate change, which is apparently to panic, because Greta Thunberg, whatever her name is panicking. The 16-year-old kids madly anxious, and all these kids anxious, so the rest of us must suffer because of the anxiety from a few children who, by the looks of them, need a good night's sleep and a good feed to sort of might come around and feel a bit better in the morning after a week's eating steak or something like fits poor little Greta up. You have to feel extremely sorry for that child. She was a totally neglected child. And that's to be a more significant thing what's come out of Greta Thunberg, whatever her name is. I'm not really interested in her name. I just looked at the child and I listened to her a couple of times. I think, crikey, the poor kid's in such duress. She's taken out at the rest of the world and so we're watching you and all that. Now, well, watching what? What is that? She's got a satellite in the sky, spying down on us, is she? And who's to blame for all? Who's to blame for humanity being human? And who's to blame for any of us using oil and coal or whatever? Because the same people who are sort of, I don't know how they imagine people are financing wind generators and solar panels, but without oil or coal, these things would not exist. You can't, it doesn't make sense. And it's obviously, there's a total failure, and it's a conspiracy, by the way. It's not failure, it's a success, by the way, by the education systems in the world, in the West, not to educate people, but to train them into a way of thinking and having their emotions triggered when something's said that they don't agree with. And they've been trained to be against, like the Extinction Rebellion. And the Extinction Rebellion itself doesn't make no sense. I know the best way to rebel against extinction is go and have lots of babies. Go and grab a lady, and if you haven't been turned into a gender fluid guy, go and grab a lady and get them pregnant, because that's your Extinction Rebellion there, and then it's having babies, isn't it? But the thing is, a major part of that, this is 93% of the world, population-wise, are getting on with expanding their economy, using more oil, more coal, more energy, because there's no choice. Energy expansion of use of energy goes with expanding an economy, is building big cities. Yet 7% of the world's population, a tiny minority in fact, are being expected to do all the heavy lifting and stop polluting, and whatever it is, it's not actually pollution, but stop using CO2 causing it, etc, etc. Which shows you what a lot of baloney it all really is. And that's one simple explanation. Exposes a lot as a fraud. I mean, climate's changing. Deal with it by not panicking. Do what China's doing and act proactively in regards to it, and get on with developing your country and your economy. And I think we should follow the Chinese lead. They're just getting on with it. They're ignoring that we're a developing country, and I'd like to know which country has stopped developing. Which country has totally developed? Which country is finished in its development? Social, its capital, economic, its philosophical development. Which country is at that state? Bhutan is about it, is it? It's about the country, so a Buddhist country has got, oh, we're going that far? Some Aboriginal people, we're not going any further than this. Nomads, we're not going any further than that. Everyone else is developing because it moves on. That's what democracy does. It develops through ideas. And that's how systems evolve. You have the rhythms go up and down, and rhythm now is going against the climate change fanatics. Because they're so totally exposed, and the politicians we have in the West have totally let us down by going along with what is a malarkey, and it's ripping everyone off, destroying the economy, it's destroying manufacture, not making the world competitive. It's taking the competition out of the world, the competition in many factors, and it's making countries like Australia and America very difficult to run economically when you've got so many people in government themselves, in their politics, or against strong economies. They're trying to work using climate change as an excuse to prevent economic growth by attacking the means of doing it, by causing extra high energy prices, by trying to make out that somehow coal shouldn't be used in Australia, for instance, oil shouldn't be used in Australia. Well, no one has ever come up with an alternative to that paradigm, energy paradigm, that develops economy and allows people to have a better life. And to say, oh, the weather will be better, so you'll have a better life, is actually infantile and childish, because a better life comes from your health and your wealth you have and your well-being and the society you have, not from the weather. Weather may make the English people miserable occasionally, but it is not the be-all and end-all of your life. When the weather changes from winter to summer, we people just deal with it. Anyway, 7% of the people of the world, the white people in democracies, are supposed to do all the heavy lifting when it comes to climate change, and the 93% of the population of the world are supposed to just get on and develop their economies willy-nilly, with the assistance, of course, of all the financial aid of the West. It all makes sense when you think about it. But it's very simple, really. And now even a child can work this one out. Even Greta could work this one out. If Johnny takes 2 apples out of a bowl and Jane puts 3 apples in, how many apples are in the bowl? Now, that sums up in total what's happening with climate change, with CO2 for instance. That sums it up. And that's all it is to it. You have to deal with it philosophically and pragmatically, and towards your positive good of your nation, exactly like China is doing. And they're the most intelligent people on earth, so I take them as the leaders in how to deal with climate change. Take my hat off to them. The West are the losers. In other words, in how to deal with climate change, we are the worst at it.